Good morning and welcome to the Broadcast Retirement Network. This is BRN AM for Friday, September 6th, 2019, and a happy National 401k and 403b day to all of you. Well, let's kick things off, and joining me now is Guy Pinkman. He is the fire captain with the Lincoln Fire and Rescue in Lincoln, Nebraska, and he's also a member of the PBGC Advisory Committee. Guy, so glad we could catch up with you. And I should also point out that you were just appointed by the president to the PBGC Advisory Committee. We'll get into that in a couple of minutes. So when you and I last spoke, it was on the podcast, The Weekly Pulse, several months ago, and you had kind of given us an update on, what police or firefighters go through, but also your work on the City of Lincoln's fire and pension plan. So let's start with an update on firemen. These folks, people like yourself, do an incredible amount of work. They work hard. What's the latest with your group of firefighters and then firefighters in general?
Well, I think, the company that I work for Lincoln Fire Department or Fire and Rescue here, we're doing extremely well. We're actually growing. Lincoln is a vibrant city, and the capital city as well, but it continues to grow. We get named top places to live in the country year after year, and new businesses thrive here, and so we're doing well. I know a lot of places around the country are downsizing or getting smaller, but we tend to are seeming to get bigger. We are going to be adding our first new station. Actually will open here in about a month, and it's the first new station we've opened in 23 years, which is way overdue. But we are moving in the right direction as far as growing to protect the citizens here in Lincoln. Now, as far as in the country, that depends on where you're at. We continue as firefighters struggle with making sure we're being vigilant as far as making sure our taxpayers are getting what they pay for, but at the same time, taking care of the people that we work with as well. I think everybody has understood or is seeing the change across the board as far as understanding PTSD and how it affects first responders, especially firefighters, police officers, and EMS workers. And I think we are seeing how we are starting to be proactive in helping these people. I know last year was one of the first years that we had more people die of suicide than we actually had die in fires. And we can't track that information very well, but we're trying to get more of that information. But we do know that happened in the last couple of years, and it's a tragedy, actually.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a tragedy, and we need to do a lot more in terms of stopping that. It's a real, PTSD is a real thing. Our troops fighting overseas have it. Police and firefighters have it. It's something that needs to be managed. And, I've interviewed several firefighters for some of the content here on the show, on the network. And it's a lot of stress, and how you manage that stress. Some folks work out, some, may play a sport, may do other things, and how you manage that is so important. Being a firefighter, and I want to get this here from you, you have a certain amount of, it's a physical job. I mean, you're not just sitting behind a desk typing on a computer. You've literally got to drag, 100 pounds of equipment on your back. Men and women carry it, rescue people. Very laborious. I'm sure that's a real challenge. And men and women in the fire company, they only work to a certain age, right? They work to like 55 or 50, depending on the department.
Yeah, I think it's a young person game. It seems like I take really good care of myself, and I've still had injuries over the years. And I and others pride ourselves in being in shape. I think you've seen a change in the nutrition and knowing what sleep does or sleep deprivation does to you. So we try to mitigate some of those risks. Mm-hmm. But like you said, it's a very difficult job physically as well as mentally, and trying to keep all of that in balance is sometimes difficult. A lot of people will do a lot of working out, sports, things like that, but there's a lot of nutrition, I think, that is becoming more important. And I've seen a real change probably in the last 10 years of people being more health conscious.
Yeah, I certainly think of you guys and gals as athletes. I mean, yes, you're doing important work, you're putting your lives on the line, but you have to be athletic to carry the equipment, to navigate often very difficult structures that are on fire or situations. When we last chatted, we talked about you're a member of the City of Lincoln's fire pension. You're a trustee.
Yes, I am. I'm a trustee on the Lincoln Police and Fire Pension Board. Yes, I am.
What are
I've
some of
been
the
over 10 years now, actually.
yeah,
So
and can you give us a little bit of a sense for what are some of the things you all talk about? And I think the pension for public sector workers very important benefit. It attracts many people to work for long periods of time for government. And therefore, it's really important to maintain these benefits for people because you want to have people who will serve in roles of police and firefighters and other important areas of government. But could you give us some of the things that you and your fellow trustees are talking about?
well, I speak all over the country, and actually, I've even got to speak all over the world on fiduciary responsibility as far as taking care of pensions and the money that is entrusted to us. So I've got a pretty good idea of what other people are talking about around the country and world. So really, it's all about the same thing. We're all trying to make the best possible decisions without taking huge risks in order to maintain and or build our pensions. A lot of people have adjusted their rate of return or what their expected rate of return is, and that can put more of a liability on the government that is backing that. A lot of people are talking about a defined benefit plan versus a defined contribution plan and the differences there, and there are huge differences in those.
Yeah.
Some people have tried to get away from the defined benefit plan and gone to defined contribution, and a lot of times with the public servant, uh, that doesn't work very well. So maintaining a good pension is a draw to have people work for you. And if you don't have that, West Palm Beach would be a great example of this. A couple of years ago, they actually got rid of their defined benefit plan and went to a defined contribution plan. And they had a very difficult time maintaining employees. Everybody left
Yeah.
because they want a secure retirement. And if you can't get that, and I'm putting in 20 or 25 years and I don't really have a secured environment, it does take away. And somebody down the road does, you're at a disadvantage of keeping that employee. Now, when we train people to be a firefighter or a police officer, we put a lot of money and time and effort into those people. We don't want them to come here, us train them, and then them go somewhere else. We want them to stay. And in order to do that, we have to have a good understanding of our pension and what's available to these people. Now, with that all in mind, as a fiduciary, I have the responsibility to my pensioners, but I also have a responsibility to the taxpayers to make sure that I am doing the best I possibly can for both people. And having a pension that pays out too much when I don't have enough coming in would not be right as well. But we have obligations. We need to meet those, but we have to do it in a safe environment. And unfortunately, with the interest rate environment that we're in right now, we're kind of at a disadvantage, and it hurts us a little bit. And we can get into that with the PBGC as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right now on the head, and really you bring a really great perspective, being that you're traveling all over the world and talking to people about pensions. And I would agree, if you want to attract workers to work for government and to stay a long period of time after you train them and to do the jobs that they want to do, you need to maintain the pension benefit. That's critical. Let's shift gears now. You were recently appointed by the president to the PBGC Advisory Committee. PBGC stands for our viewers, the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation. That's the backstop for many pensions. Can you share a little bit about your perspective? You're on the committee, things that you're talking about, some of the advice that you are hearing, giving to the members of the PBGC?
Well, you bet. We advise on investment policy as well as policy. Our advisory committee does. There's 7 of us. And so we look at what's out there, what we're doing as far as the people that are in the PBGC spectrum and employers that may be coming into because of bankruptcy or otherwise. And we have to look at a long-term perspective. There's 2 different plans. One side is the single employer, the other side is the multi-employer. The single employer has been doing very well as far as maintaining their funding, and how they invest and what they're doing. They're doing a liabilities-driven investment, and so they're doing extremely well in maintaining that. So those plans are very well funded. Now, the multi-employer plan, a lot of people may have heard of it here lately because there was a bill in the House and then a bill in the Senate to shore that up or give loans to companies that were in need or that were in jeopardy of bankruptcy to shore up their pensions. And that bill was just to shore up the pension, nothing else in that business, but just for the pension. It was a loan situation and a long-term loan situation. But a lot of pensions around the country, and this is like I said, the public side, or excuse me, the private side more than the public side. We still do have unions that are involved in this. The West Virginia Coal is in there. We have some other Teamster unions that may be in the multi-employers, but for the most part, you're not talking fire, police. You're talking the private sector, and we're trying to make sure that in 10 years or 20 years, that this doesn't turn around and just fall completely on the taxpayers all across the board. These people have been promised something, and in order to maintain that, we need to make sure that the money is available and the money is being invested well and correctly, and even taking that liabilities-driven investing and utilizing it to sustain this for a long period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to put it into context, I couldn't imagine being a retiree, receiving a benefit, and then getting a letter or a communication saying, hey, we're going to cut your benefit because there's not enough money. Clearly, something needs to be done. I know Sherrod Brown and others in the U.S. Senate are advocating for some level of support. Let's hope that something gets worked through. Guy, we're going to have to leave it there. Certainly appreciate your perspective. Really interesting, and would love to chat with you again right here on the show. Take care, and we will talk with you very soon.
Thank you so much, and have a great one.
Thanks so much for joining us, Guy. Good luck in the city of Lincoln, Nebraska, and good luck on the PBGC Advisory Committee. And when we come back, we're going to leave the comforts of the United States and travel to Okyama, Japan, where I'll chat with Dr. Kenji Chida, a former U.S. citizen now living in Japan. We're going to learn more about the Japanese retirement system right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Welcome back. And so that was Retirement West, Western United States. Now we're going to shift gears and talk about Retirement East. Joining me now is Kenji Chida from Okyama, Japan. Kenji, so good to hear your voice, so good to see you.
You too. It's good to see you too.
Absolutely. Well, I really wanted to catch up with you because what's interesting about your career and your life is that you actually spent time grew up in the United States in Baltimore, Maryland, our hometown. We've known each other since high school.
Right.
And you relocated to Japan to teach. So you've got a really interesting perspective on retirement and savings. So why don't you give us, take 30 seconds, a minute, and tell us a little bit about your perspective, kind of making that shift.
Right. Like you said, I mean, I been living in Japan, in Okyama, Japan, for many years now. It's actually been around almost 21 years.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm originally from the United States, from Baltimore City. I went to university there, well, high school, university. Then I moved to New York City. And from New York, after I finished graduate school, I came to Okyama. And I started teaching in various venues, mostly in university, about 1998. And I've been here ever since.
So what would you say, you worked in New York, I think you had a 403B plan the last time we chatted.
Right.
And
right.
now you've got a pension plan.
Right.
How do you see the differences? I mean, in the U.S., it's basically pay go. You have to put money away if you don't.
Right.
Right. Most people do not have a pension. Talk a little bit about the Japanese system and how you acclimated yourself to it more than 20 years ago.
Well, when I got here, I learned that there was a national pension plan, and I decided I wanted to join it, even though no one told me about it. I was working for a private company that didn't require us to join it at that time, even though technically everyone's supposed to join it. They didn't really care so much. But I went and I talked to people in the city hall, and I signed up, and I started to pay the premiums. And it was probably a couple of years after I got here, and I've been paying it ever since. It's basically they set the premiums through a percentage of your income, but now it's actually a set payment that everyone has to pay, and I guess it's around between 14,000 to 16,000 yen a month. It's somewhat case by case. It's not a lot, but you are eligible to receive your benefits at around the age 65. But you can, so it's a little bit, it's somewhat similar to the Social Security system in terms of when you can receive it. And it depends on your specific situation. You can actually get it a bit earlier or a bit later, and you can adjust your payments based on your needs.
And so just to kind of hit on that for a second, you're a family man, you've got a wife, you've got several children. How has that kind of changed your savings needs and your thoughts about the system and what to put in and what not to put in?
Well, it's really made me think, well, I really had to join it. That's one of the reasons why I joined, especially when I figured I was going to stay in Japan long term. In Japan and the U.S. have a relationship where before I actually became a citizen, I thought, well, I'll just pay into the U.S. Social Security system, which is not actually a pension, but I thought I'd just do that. They actually have a relationship where you can continue to pay the U.S. Social Security system and not do the Japanese pension if you're an American. But I decided to do the Japanese one because I was going to be here. And once my kids were born, I thought it'd just be better to be in this system because actually the Japanese system allows for payments to children, say in the case that you are ill, say for example, you have an illness where you pass away or something like that, you can actually, your benefits will pass in some regard to children. So I thought that was also some type of security or safety net that they could have. So but it's just something that's here that we didn't have in the U.S. when I first came here. So I thought it's worth, because it's run by the government, it's secure. So I thought it was worthwhile joining.
Yeah, it seems to make sense to me, especially if you're going to be you're going to remain a citizen of Japan and remain in Japan, which is a great country. I want to shift gears just a little bit. Healthcare is obviously a big issue. It's a big issue here in the U.S. We have exceptionally high healthcare costs. How do you manage? You've got children, you've got a wife, you've got your own healthcare needs. How do you manage the healthcare needs in Japan for yourself and your family?
Well, there's also a national healthcare system, and I joined that. Actually, all residents, whether you're a Japanese national or foreign national, you're required to be on some type of system, including the healthcare and the pension system, which they call a social insurance system altogether. And I used to be on the national system, and as you said, I mean, as a teacher. I just joined the national system, and basically, for the last 20 years, I've been a part-time, or actually considered to be a self-employed person by the Japanese government, and I do all kinds of work. Now, actually, I'm doing work as a business person, but I work enough for some companies where I actually qualify to be on their health insurance system. So now I'm actually with a company, and the company pays for my and my family's health insurance, and it's sort of a company insurance, yet it's also through the Japanese social insurance system. In this case, the companies that I work for in Japan, if you work over a certain number of hours, even if you're a part-timer, you're qualified to get into a company's insurance plan. It may be a little bit similar to what the U.S. has now, but in the case of Japan, this company will pay part of your premiums, and it covers health insurance and your pension at the same time. So as long as you work a certain number of hours for the company, even if you're a part-timer, you can be covered in this system. And that's what I've been in for the last 3 years now. So it's I think a lot of Japanese people, and this goes with the changes in the laws that have happened in Japan in the last few years, where the government's trying to make sure people have adequate health insurance and also pension coverage, and that companies are responsible for that for employees that work at least over 20 hours. Before, there were no checks on this, and people were just out there mostly having to get into the national health insurance, paying a 10% premium, 10% of their income. And for a lot of people, it was actually not manageable, because they're end up paying, depending on what you make, you could end up paying a lot of money for health insurance that you don't even use, and getting nothing paid for by the company, even though legally they should be paying. So recently, the government has made sure that the companies that use people's services, even if it's for a short period of time, pay into it. And actually, I've been fortunate to have been helped by this change. Whereas before, I was paying quite a lot out of my own pocket to cover myself and my family. Now, some of the places I work for have to contribute. And that's actually a change that's come about in Japan in the last few years.
Yeah, well, it sounds like very similar to some of the challenges we're facing here in the States, making sure that people are covered. We went through what was the Affordable Care Act. We're still kind of going through that, still a source of conversation and debate. We're going to have to leave it there, Kenji, but it's always a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks so much for sharing some of your story, and we'll talk to you very soon, my friend.
Thank you.
Well, folks, that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Hey, have a topic or someone you think makes sense to interview? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for more news, check out today's edition of The Morning Pulse, where you can find all the latest news in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, so much more. Hope you have a great National 401k 403b day. I know I will. Keep saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.